Hey, I wanted to talk for a few minutes about what I do and how I utilize it daily. I've shared quite a bit, I think, about the power of the subconscious mind and how we hold things in our body and whatnot. But I think that sometimes it's maybe hard to wrap our brain around certain concepts if we're not already familiar. Excuse me. And so I just felt like it was important to lay a little bit of a foundation. Feel free to reach out with any questions. I would love to clarify. So let me just start by saying, first of all, I started down this holistic path about a decade ago, and before that, I was very much just traditional approaches, and I had some experiences that caused me to look for an alternative, and as I found it, I was finding amazing results, and so I've just continued. And does that mean that even though I found results where I found physical pain be lifted and watch transformation happen within my life and those that I've worked with and loved ones, even though I've seen all that, does that mean that just everything is resolved and great and whatnot? No. It is definitely like part of this, my belief is part of this life, this mortal journey is really a process of learning and growing and expanding and experiencing. I've shared with family before this story, and I don't know if anybody has heard or read the books Conversations with God, but it talks about, really this concept. Well, it shares this spirit's or soul's conversation with God about wanting to develop certain characteristics, certain attributes, divine attributes that God had. And one of the things that he asked for was the divine characteristic or trait of forgiveness. Well, you can't have that if you don't have somebody to forgive. So I believe, and that goes with anything in life, as far as empathy and compassion and gratitude and just all the things in life, we get to learn what they are by experiencing stuff. Like, I get to learn to have compassion by going through certain experiences, right? And so that's going to continue no matter what. But what I have found with this holistic approach and the way in which I utilize it is that I have found myself with such, I would say, mindset shifts and tools so that when something comes up, I can move through it so much simpler and quicker. Like I know where to go. I've got this tool belt, right? So I hope that makes sense. So a lot of times what happens, and I'm going to start with just a super basic example, and hopefully this makes sense. Let me back up for just a second. First of all, to know that when I talk about subconscious, we have our conscious mind that I'm having this conversation right now or sharing this right now. I'm utilizing just this conscious part of me, whereas the subconscious runs in the background all the time and we actually function and live 95% of our life comes from the subconscious. And the subconscious plays such a key role in our life. The subconscious has jobs, so to speak. Its job number one is to keep us safe, and it has a tendency to, like, it keeps us safe, and it comes from a space of past experiences, etc. Like, I burned my hand on the stove. By touching it, I'm not going to do that again, right? I had this experience with this person and it hurt deeply. I'm going to create this form of protection, etc. So it gets to keep us safe. And with that, we I just lost my train of thought. Also, you look at that as far as the survive, like we have three parts of our brain. We have like the monkey brain, the lizard brain is our survival brain, and our angel brain. And I'm not going to get into that, but that's all that plays a role in this subconscious, how the subconscious affects our lives, what part of the brain is being used, and where things are stored and whatnot. Every experience, every thought, feeling, emotion that we have is stored in the cells of our body. I'm like, how deep do I want to go? I said I was going to keep this basic. I am just going to say, though, that also passes on through our DNA to our posterity. So, some of this stuff that we have could have, some of these defense mechanisms for safety could have also originated from a parent, grandparent, ancestor, whatever. Oh, I recall what I was saying. So as far as the safety aspect goes, remembering something that happened, and not wanting to repeat that because we need to be kept safe. Anytime something comes up, it's also about recognizing truth. So anytime something comes up that might show up on the radar, for example, to be similar to that, the subconscious is going to see that and validate that. So let me give an example. Let's say that a person had an experience with a family member as a childhood that really hurt deep, and it caused this person to feel maybe rejected or abandoned or unloved. And then later, and that hurt deep, and that was an emotion, or that was a feeling and a belief that didn't process, and so it's stored at the cellular level. And then something happens down the road that triggers that old response and is validation for, oh, see, you are not lovable, you are being rejected, all of these things. And so the more we have those types of experiences that validate those emotions, validate those beliefs, I'm not lovable, I'm not safe, I'm unwanted, being rejected, whatever it is, the more solid it becomes. We can have an emotion, and the more we reflect and have these validating experiences, it actually becomes a belief system. It can become so strong that it's more like a fact, and it's something that runs is a program in the background of our mind that affects our choices every single day, all the time. Hopefully that makes sense. We end up with these subconscious programs like a computer that are always running. You know, we focus on what's right in front of us that we see, that is tangible on our computer screen. And the majority don't really know what's going on in the background that's creating this and allowing this to happen, allowing me to do all the things that I need to do on the computer. And I have no idea. I'm not a software developer and have no idea how that takes place. I just know it does. And it's the same concept with our mind. When we're looking at the subconscious and how it affects us in our life, it's there to show us truth, to validate, to protect us. And sometimes that, and so often, here's the thing, is I say truth and validating, but it's, where is that coming from? Is that divine truth, or is that truth based on perception? And so I'm going to jump into this real quick. We have emotions, and they define, let me back up. If I were to have an experience, and let's say, for example, I heard somebody say, I was told that somebody was saying things about me that were not truthful and were just negative about me. What is the first thought that might come to my mind about this? This first thought could be, what are they talking about? Why are they saying such things? This isn't even true. This person must not like me. This person must be out to, I don't even know. This person just sharing gossip about me. You know, this is this unkind person that must be thinking all these things. And I can start cycling all this stuff, right, in my brain. And as I do that, emotions come up. My thoughts create an emotion. My thoughts, with that thought, but that emotion doesn't come up just on its own. What happens is those thoughts assign a meaning. So I had a meaning assigned to why this person said what they said. I hope this is making sense. For example, I could have thought, wow, I wonder what made this person say this. I could be curious. I could have the thought that they must be out to get me, kind of thought, which would create an emotion of maybe anger or resentment or all these things. Or I could have the thought of curiosity and, they must be confused, which creates an entirely different emotion. I hope this makes sense. Thought has I have a thought, a meaning is assigned, an emotion comes with it. Depending what I do with that determines what happens next. This is all so quick. But here's the thing. If I recognize this thought and I recognize the emotion that comes, and we're going to tap in the law of attraction for just 1 second. If I hold that for a minimum of 17 seconds, it's going to attract or evolve into another emotion. And for example, that is like that. If I hold that for another 17 seconds, it's going to attract something else that is similar. And we get into this snowball effect of momentum. And yet, if I catch myself quickly, I have the opportunity to change that. I have the opportunity to think and ask myself questions from a space of curiosity, and to be able to, or maybe zoom out and look at, is there something different? Maybe there could be a different way to look at this. What could that be? So One example in looking at what at what I do on a regular basis is simply that. If something happens that I feel maybe triggers something in me, I'm like, ooh, that hurt. What is that? Then I can ask the question and I can choose to look at something from a slightly different perspective. And when I do that, I also look at, wow, if that thing offended me means that, or hurt me deeply, hurt me in any way, like I tend to feel it in my body, feel it in the heart, feel it in the gut, feel it somewhere. I can ask myself questions like, where does that come from? Is there an old wound that was just triggered from this? And as I ask, here's a beautiful thing. The subconscious loves to answer questions. It has all the answers. It has everything stored. And as we ask questions, it will give us the answers. And so I will have these conversations with myself and walking through and choosing to come to it from a space of curiosity, free of judgment. So I can work through resolving it. And that can be resolved from me just scribbling it out on a piece of paper, from journaling, from just simply choosing to honor and validate those emotions and just allow myself to breathe it out, so to speak. Maybe I'll do a quick mental visualization or meditation type thing to just see it leave my body. Emotion is energy in motion. The feeling or emotion of resentment or pain or shame or guilt or whatever it is, all the stuff, rejection, unlove, anything, has a very specific energy. It has an energetic frequency. It's resonating in our body. And when we're feeling it, it's there, and we can choose to allow our bodies to process it and allow it to pass through. I hope that makes sense. I'd love to dive into this deeper, and actually I wanted to keep this semi-short. So that's one little example, a little foundation, and I think I'll do like a part 2, for example, for some of the physical feelings and ways that I address this a little bit deeper on a physical level. But I just wanted to give just a tiny bit of foundation, a tiny bit of food for thought, and some things that I do and utilize every day. It really has been so beneficial in moving from a space of victim, a space of blaming other people, when I can choose to shift my thoughts, that shifts my emotions, that shifts how I feel, it shifts subconscious habits and patterns and programs, which really, like a computer, runs in the background all the time in determining my decisions in how I act and react and deal with people. And it is shifted in such a way that things that used to bother me deeply now are, some of them, and maybe it's just subtle. Maybe there's just still a little bit there. Others, maybe I'm like, yeah, I'm good with that, because I've worked through these processes over and over. Anytime I find something that triggers, I get to ask the subconscious questions, and I get to reframe things, and I get to look at things and make some shifts. And it's a beautiful gift that I love to teach and share people about. And this is just kind of a little snippet, and I'll do a part 2 where I will give a little bit more insight further in with other examples and how I use that in my physical body. With that, I'm gonna call it, and we'll chat again soon. Have a good day.